workers.
Hey everyone. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Kathleen. Um, we're back. Tech Club. It's been a few months now. Um, and this installment, we're going to be talking about cloud storage and cloud backup and just kind of trying to demystify that a little bit. I like using that word a lot when I talk about tech with folks, just trying to demystify. So, um, cloud cloud storage can be kind of complicated if you get into the details of it and get really granular with it. So I'm going to keep it a little more broad so we can just learn about how it works generally and just kind of the concepts and how they apply to a few different ecosystems and devices. So I got a little slideshow for everyone. I'm going to start sharing my screen here. All right. Does everyone see that there?
Yep.
Okay, great. So yeah, cloud storage. I got my title here: Cute Cumulative Nimbus or Data Deluge. um, so cloud, that the cloud is an interesting one because it's a bit of a marketing term and it's really just a shorthand term for the entire internet, really. So when something's in the cloud, it's really just shorthand for saying it's on the internet. And the cloud is everything that makes up the internet at a high level, generally. So when you upload your data to the cloud, you're storing it on hard drives in a remote location. So I started off this slide initially by saying it's a marketing term. That's kind of how I view it. I view the cloud as a marketing term that makes things sound very, very digestible and simple and cute when, what's really happening, it's not going up into the air, it's not going up into the sky, it's going on to someone else's computer, basically. I've heard it described as you're just you're just using someone else's computer rather than your own. You're storing your data on someone else's computer. And so when you upload your data to the cloud, it's actually traveling through the internet and being stored on hard drives. And usually they're located in these very large data centers. So these pictures on the screen are these racks and racks, and they have thousands and even millions of hard drives and called servers, computers that are in these large data centers. And I thought these are pretty interesting because they're, you don't really notice them. They're they're not there may not be a huge sign out front that says what they are, or it may not be that noticeable, or it may be in a remote location even. Um, but corporations house millions of these hard drives in these massive data centers. And I have this link here. I may need to, okay, you all can't see that link, can you? I might need to change the way I'm sharing my screen. Just a second. So now I'm going to share a different screen for you. Can you see this here? This is a website, and this is Microsoft's global data centers. And this is everywhere in the world where they operate these large warehouses of computers called data centers. And so if you go to page 3 here, there's one in Des Moines. And that's probably where a lot of our data here in the Midwest is stored if you're storing something using Microsoft. So this is just to give you an idea. It's just these huge warehouses, and it's not in the sky. Try to share my screen again here. Just a moment. Okay, can you see the presentation again?
Yes.
Okay, It's a little confusing over here. Um, uh, so yeah, the tech companies, most of them are operated by large tech companies. They operate regional data centers. So if you're on the West Coast, your data may be stored on the West Coast, and if you're in the Midwest, it might be stored in the middle of the country. And there's some down in Texas, and then there's a lot on the East Coast. So it kind of works regionally like that. So your data gets stored closer to you so that your transfer times are faster. That's the point of it. So it doesn't take quite as long to transmit it to and from the internet. And there's 7.2 million data centers globally and 2,670 in the US. I thought that was pretty amazing. So again, it's kind of shorthand for the internet. So your email is a cloud service. So when you are sending someone an email, it's actually just being stored in the cloud, being stored on a server, and then someone else is getting access to it. You're not actually sending them anything. You're sending an email to a server somewhere, and then that person's being notified and they can access it. Software is often a cloud service. So when you buy a piece of software, it might just be accessing data on the internet that is stored in the cloud. And basically every website, typo here, every website is stored in the cloud. So if you've looked at a website, that's accessing data that's stored in the cloud. Another thing that I think is pretty interesting about these large data centers, as you look at these photos on the screen, is they consume about, these figures vary in my research, but 1 to 3% of energy globally. So I've seen figures as high as 3% of all of the globe's energy is consumed by data centers at this point. And if you look at this picture, you see these large turbines. That's because they need massive cooling infrastructure to keep all of the computers housed inside of them really cool so they don't overheat. That's a big part of computers, is making sure they stay cool. And so a large data center can consume enough electricity to power 80,000 houses. So a little bit more about the energy that I thought was interesting. So the global airline industry accounts for 2% of global greenhouse gas emissions. So it's just interesting. Some people think that the data centers don't make as many greenhouse emissions because they may run on cleaner electricity. But to put it in perspective a little bit, uh, um, they also use more electricity than entire countries. Like all the data centers in the world basically use about the same amount of energy as the UK. So it's just, there's a lot of computers out there storing a lot of people's data, and it's only increasing. So 3 categories of cloud storage, I'd say, are public cloud services. So these are ones you've probably heard of, like public meaning they're available to the general public. So Google, and they have Google Drive, or Microsoft. Microsoft offers OneDrive, which is sometimes called Office 365, or Dropbox. So these are examples of public cloud services. Social media, those are cloud services, because when you upload your photos to Facebook or Instagram or anywhere online, it's being stored in that company's cloud on their servers. And then lastly, we already mentioned email is a cloud service, and that's cloud storage. So when you attach a document to an email and you send it to someone, you didn't really send it to them. You just stored it in the cloud, and then they can view it or download it from the cloud. So email is essentially just a cloud service, and that's a cloud storage. And that's why if you email yourself something, you can access it on any device because it's in the cloud. I feel like I'm saying that word a lot. Um, okay, so then when we talk about the cloud, you inevitably talk about these five large companies, um, and I'm calling them cloud competitors. Now, there's definitely many other companies that offer cloud services, cloud storage, cloud backup, but these five companies are called the Big Five, and those are the Big Five tech companies. And I have a little graphic here to show you. I've been working on this for a little while as I help people at the library in technology one-on-ones. I find it useful often. Can you see this table here? Okay, there we go. I can see it. I find it useful to explain technology through the lens of companies, through the lens of corporations, because this is just my opinion at the moment, but it's like no matter how uh, familiar you are with technology or how comfortable you are, or whether you are a digital native and you're 15 years old or 50 years old or 80 years old, I think everyone understands companies competing with similar products. And when you view it through that lens, companies trying to offer similar products and competing with each other for your hard-earned dollar, it kind of tends to make more sense. So don't let this whole chart overwhelm you, but um, there's these big five companies: Apple, Google, which is called Alphabet, that's their parent company, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, which just changed its name to Meta, and then I have another column here for other companies. So Apple, they they make the iPhone, so we're all pretty familiar with that, probably. Uh, actually, well, let me back up just a second. So Apple's cloud storage, if you look on this third row here, is iCloud. That's what they call their cloud storage. And then Google, their cloud storage is called Google Drive. And then Microsoft, their cloud storage product is called OneDrive. But it's actually also called Azure in the business world, the more enterprise business class servers, which would actually make up a large portion of Microsoft's business. And then Amazon, they actually have a thing called Amazon Drive that people don't use very often, and they're actually phasing that out this year, at the end of this year. But they operate a thing called AWS, Amazon Web Services. And this is very interesting. Under the radar, Amazon's web services, their cloud storage hosting, makes up about a third of the internet. So a third of the entire internet is hosted on Amazon's servers. And that's called Amazon Web Services, AWS. And that's not something that you might access directly every day as a consumer, but it's something that you're using a website that is hosted on Amazon servers and in their cloud storage. And then you have Facebook and Instagram, and their cloud storage isn't really like a cloud storage per se, it's just Facebook and Instagram. So when you upload your photos or your videos, that's where they live. And then another one that you've probably heard of is Dropbox. Dropbox was one of the first standalone cloud storage companies. So that's kind of a competitor to these other big companies, and they're just a standalone company that does just that, just lets you store your data in the cloud. And you can go back, and I can share this presentation with everyone, and you can go back and click on these links and look at this chart. I find it to be pretty helpful because you can see how each company has their own competing products. So um, Apple's web browser is Safari, and Google's is Chrome, and Microsoft's is Edge. But Edge actually uses Google's Chrome engine, so it's basically Chrome. And then Amazon has what they call the Silk browser. So each company almost across the board, they offer competing products. So I won't go into all of these, but I think it's a pretty interesting little resource there. I'm going to swap back over to my slideshow. Give me practice jumping between the windows. Okay, so this is a little bit of a tangent, I must admit, but I think this is pretty interesting. This is how these 5 companies make their money. So this gives a little bit of context because uh, all these tech companies offer you free storage. A lot of times you have free cloud storage, and sometimes, and you can't. Well, and then you have to ask yourself, how is it free? Is it really free? Like how do they make money on cloud storage? And maybe that might even influence your opinion of which company to go with or where to store your data. So, got another link for you. Okay, so this is something that I found that I thought was pretty interesting. How do big tech giants make their billions? um, and Amazon, this is a couple years old, 1 year old, not too bad. So Amazon revenue 470 billion or so. And if you look at this chart here, they make most of their money from their online store, Amazon.com. So I'm sure they make a cut of all the sales on Amazon.com. And then down here at the bottom, 13.2%, that's the Amazon Web Services that I was telling you about. So that's other companies paying Amazon to host their websites. And then you have their Prime subscriptions, like if you have Amazon Prime Video. But as you can see, about half of it is Amazon.com. That's how that corporation makes its money. And so then they might offer you cloud storage in some form or another, and it might be free because they're making their money from Amazon.com. And here's Apple. Apple, if you look at their company, it's very similar. They make half their money on selling iPhones. So Apple, they have cloud storage too. They have cloud, you can back your data up to their cloud called iCloud. But that's not where they're making their money. They make their money on selling you the iPhone. And then they give you the cloud storage for free as a feature of having the iPhone. And then they sell iPads and Macs. And then they have other subscriptions like Apple Pay and well, actually financial services. Even they have a credit card. Kind of crazy. So, but as you can see, Amazon sells things in their store. Apple sells iPhones and iPads and Macs. That's where most of their money comes from. And then Alphabet, otherwise known as Google, they sell ads. That's what they don't sell you computers. They don't sell you things in a store. They sell ads. So what they do is they give you free email, free documents, free spreadsheets, free cloud storage, free everything. And it seems like it's free, but what's actually happening is um, they comb through all of your email words, all of the things that you say in your email, and all the things that you type into your internet browser, and they sell that data to companies in order for the companies to target ads to you. And they make close to 70% of their money on ads. So if you go to YouTube and you watch a video on YouTube about gardening, and then you get an ad the next day about gardening things. That's how that happened. And that garden store paid Google to find you, so they could give you the ad and said that maybe you'll buy their stuff. And so again, they're all these products that they offer, they're cloud services products. They seem free, but that's where the money's coming from. And then here's Microsoft. So Microsoft is interesting because there's this Microsoft Azure, which I was mentioning. That's their server and cloud products. That's mostly for business, business servers. We were just demoing a software at the library yesterday, and it ran on Microsoft Azure. And then they make a good bit of money on their Office products like Microsoft Office and selling Windows to go on computers. So they're really a server company and a software company. And then you have Facebook, which 97.5% advertising. Facebook doesn't really make much, you know. They don't really make a computer, they don't make an operating system. They make Facebook, and they bought Instagram, and they bought WhatsApp, and they sell companies ads to run on their um, platforms, and that's where 97.5% of their money comes from. All right. Okay. Okay, this is also an interesting one to me. So how much is a billion? Because I just think it's interesting how big these companies are and how many computers that they run. So 1 million seconds is 11 days, but 1 billion seconds is 32 years. We just have a hard time wrapping our mind around what the difference between a million and a billion is. There's an exponential factor there. So if you had $1,000 and you spent $1,000 a day, it would take you 3 years to spend $1 million. So if you spend $1,000 a day, take you 3 years to spend 1 million. And if you spent $1,000 a day in, until you got to 1 billion, it would take you 2,740 years. So it's a lot more. So these companies have a lot of money. All right. So a lot of people want to know if when you store your data in the cloud, if it's safe. And cloud storage is typically safer than local storage. So local is what you call it when it's just stored on your phone or on your computer right there physically in your hand. And it's typically safer. Um, there have been a few instances where there have been large data losses at cloud services and cloud storage, but that's not very common. Um, one of the best one of the best parts about cloud storage is it's likely replicated elsewhere for redundancy and safety. So I was mentioning earlier, most of your data, if you store something on your Google Drive or on your iCloud, is probably located pretty close to you, like in the Midwest. But then it's hard to say this for sure. Honestly, I was having quite a bit of trouble finding this information with certainty because you don't really know exactly where your data is going. No one really knows. There are people that work at these companies that know, but the general consumer doesn't really know. So usually it goes to a data center close to you within a few hours, but then it's also replicated somewhere else for redundancy and safety. So it's usually in two places. And so that's a rule of thumb that got taught to me early on in my tech career, was that you can think of it like this. If your files don't exist in two places, then you shouldn't consider that they exist at all. So if it's not in two places, just act like it doesn't really exist, because you could lose it at any moment. But when you're backing up something to the cloud, then it's on your device. So if you're backing up your phone, it's on your phone and it's in the cloud. So now it's in two places. So if you drop your phone in the toilet and it breaks, your data is still safe in a second location. And that's what makes cloud storage safer than local storage. Now, local storage, you could save it on two hard drives. You could save it on your computer, and you could save it on an external drive as well. And that's always recommended. But it's just a little more cumbersome to do. And cloud storage is becoming more and more convenient. So these are the the advantages of cloud storage as I see it anyway. Um, your data is available on any device. So when you're backing up your data, or not even just backing up, when you're storing your data in the cloud. So this presentation, for instance, I'm using Google Slides to make this presentation. And yesterday I was out of the office and I worked from home, and I signed into my Google account, and there was my presentation, and I worked on it at home. I didn't need to bring any files. All of my stuff was there. So your data is available on any device, and that's just super convenient. As long as you remember your password and you can log in. And you can access that data anywhere using your mobile phone or your tablet or your laptop. So you could be in your house on Wi-Fi, or you could be driving down the road, if you have mobile data and you can access your data. And like I mentioned, you don't need to carry around a flash drive or a hard drive, and it's safe and secure. So for instance, if I was bringing this presentation home to work on yesterday, I could have misplaced my flash drive, and then that would be a big problem, especially if that was the only place that it was stored. But when it's stored in the cloud, all I need to do is log on to any computer and I can access it. So another big part about cloud storage is that your data is synced across multiple devices. And we'll talk about this a little more when we talk about iCloud. So that's how you can take a picture with your phone, and then you can get it on a computer. And if they're both logged into the same account and they use the same cloud storage, then your phone that you took on your picture that you took on your phone is now on your computer automatically, because they're syncing with the same servers. Um, Another thing that I see a lot here in the library is people that want to free up space on their phone. Um, so people might have a phone or an iPad or whatever it may be, and they are running out of space. And it says that their iCloud is full or their Google Drive is full, and they want to free up space. So maybe they want to save their photos on another drive and clear them off of their phone so they can free up the space. And you can do that, but these companies actually it's not really set up for that. They're not really encouraging that or incentivizing that. What they really want you to do is pay a little extra money for extra storage. So you don't have to go through the trouble of transferring all your photos off of your phone or out of the cloud and onto a hard drive and storing those and taking some more pictures. It can be a little cumbersome to do that. But what I do is I actually just recommend people to pay the little bit extra money if they can afford it, because um, I would really call it inexpensive insurance. So if you have house insurance or car insurance, it's not so inexpensive. It costs quite a bit of money. So you might have a situation where you have a house fire and you lose your family photos. Well, if they're in the cloud, you're not going to lose them. So that's where inexpensive insurance, to me, it's a really decent bargain. We get really used to paying. We get used to these things being free because these companies are selling ads, or they're selling you the $1,000 phone. Um, so it's not really free. You had to pay $1,000 for the phone, or you bought the products that they sold the ads for. But the extra cloud storage sometimes can be like 99 cents a month or $2.99 a month, and it does add up. But it's very convenient, and I like to think of it as inexpensive insurance for your precious photos and videos. Um, and the last thing I'll say about cloud storage is, um, the good part about it is it changes. So this can be good or bad. So on the good side, you get automatic updates, and everything conveniently just is the latest version. So if you're using Gmail and it's hosted in the cloud and it just changes one day and you always have the latest, greatest version. So you don't ever have to update your software or buy a new version. Go to the store, buy a new version, install a new version. It's always just updated. But the downsides of cloud storage, because there's always a trade-off, right? And that's why I like thinking of these things as products. Um, so there's always a little bit of a trade-off when you're considering different products to purchase or use. Um, the downsides are you have to log in, so you have to remember your password. So what we see in the library a lot is folks might come into the computer lab. Actually, I just uh, dealt with this a few hours ago. Someone tried to sign into their Gmail and they didn't know their password, and it wanted to send the code to their phone, but they had a new phone and they didn't have the old phone that was tied to their Google. Well, they just can't get it. They can't log in. There may be, if they had a backup email, they could, but most of the time what we see is if people don't remember their Google password, they won't be able to log in. And so they've gotten really restrictive about that. And if so, remember those passwords because you got to log in or you can't get any of your stuff. So you don't have to keep up with the flash drive, but you have to remember your password. The other thing is you have to be connected to the internet. And some of this stuff is kind of obvious, right? But then if your internet goes out, you realize how you can't do anything. You realize how much we start to rely on all of these services. So we have some trouble every once in a while in the library with folks connecting to the Wi-Fi. And uh, it's a big problem because almost everything that people use now is in the cloud. The other thing would be slower loading times. So if you're downloading something from the cloud to view it, like if you're looking at a photo that's in your Google Photos, it has to load that photo for a second, which means it's pulling it out of the internet. And it's going to be a little bit slower than if you just had it on your phone. It would be more instant. And then it'll use cloud services will use mobile data if you're not on Wi-Fi, so that could cost money depending on your phone plan. And like iCloud especially, we get a lot of questions about that here, and it can be a little confusing. The syncing uh, across different devices, all the syncing, it can just one of the things I say is it's invisible, and when things are invisible, they tend to be a little confusing because we can't see what's happening. It's hard to visualize it, at least it is for me. And then the bad part of change is things can change automatically. So if you're using Gmail and you log in one day, a button that you were used to being up on the right corner might be in the left corner. Usually they try not to change it too much like that, but it might move. The layout could change and you have no control over that. So that can be a little frustrating when you get used to it one way and then all of a sudden it changes just when you got used to it. So I've been mentioning Gmail a lot. We'll go into a couple of examples of cloud storage and really cloud service environments, I guess you could call them. Some of these kind of words they still sound techy to me, really. It's an environment. So these companies, especially Google and Microsoft, which would be the two main ones we talk about, they have created competing environments. So with Google, if you have Gmail, then you have a Google Drive. And then you have, actually it's called a Google Workspace. So with your Google Workspace account, you get 15 gigabytes of storage space in the cloud for free. And again, I put free in quotes because it's free because they're selling your information to sell ads. And so when you sign up for a Google Workspace account, you get 15 gigabytes of free storage, and your Gmail attachments, your email attachments count towards that storage space. So if you attach a video to an email and send it to a friend, that's actually going into your Google Drive and counting towards that 15 gigabytes. And a lot of people don't really realize that that's the way it's working because they'll go into a lot of people don't necessarily go right into their Google Drive, like click on the Google Drive app and go directly into their Google Drive. But basically, anytime you've emailed something Or sometimes if you've had it emailed to you, or you've used any Google app. So Google Docs, Google Sheets, which are spreadsheets, or um, Google Calendar, all of this data is actually being stored in your Google Drive in one way or another. Or you can actually go straight to your Google Drive. At the bottom of the screen, there's this little triangle. That is the app icon for your Google Drive. And you can click on that and go straight into your Google Drive and just store files in there just like you would a hard drive. So you get 15 gigabytes for free, and you can upgrade to 100 gigabytes for $2 a month, or 2 terabytes, which is 2,000 gigabytes, for $10 a month. Does everyone know what the Google Apps are? Does anyone not know what that is? I can show everyone if you want. I know everyone's muted, but
Let's see it.
okay. I'm going to share a different screen here. So this is email here. And when we're in Gmail, this is probably familiar to anyone who has Google. This is Gmail. And when I go up to the top right-hand corner, can you see my mouse there? This is not, it's
Yep.
not very obvious. It's called the Google Apps icon. Some people call it the waffle. Some people call it Rubik's Cube. But you click on that, and then that shows you all of your Google apps. And so these are all free services that are included with your Gmail and your Google Workspace account. So you have a calendar, you have Google Docs, which basically competes with Microsoft Word. You have Google Sheets, which competes with Microsoft Excel. Google Drive, there's the Drive icon I was telling you about if you want to go straight to your cloud storage. Even YouTube is a Google company. A lot of people don't really think about that. Um, so if I click on Google Drive, it looks like this. I think I need to keep changing my window that I'm sharing. Can you see that? So even this presentation that I'm using right now is actually stored in my Google Drive. It's a Google Slides. So it's one of their apps. So I didn't actually put it in my Google Drive. It automatically is created there because that's where it lives, as you might say. And if I click on my drive right here, I can see lots and lots of files. So at the library, I create videos, and there's folders that have all kinds of files in them. So it's like a big hard drive. So you could go straight in there, and you could store your files directly by dragging them right into the window. Or, like I said, if you create a Google Doc or you create a Google slideshow, it automatically just gets stored right in there. Or even if you have email attachments, they're going to go right in here as well. Okay. So yeah, that's Google. And like I said, we could get really granular with this stuff. I actually love talking about Google just because a lot of people don't even know that all that stuff is right in that little tiny icon, and it's super useful, and it's really easy to share documents with people and make slideshows, and I find it to be really easy to use. And but yeah, that's why it's all free, is they're selling you ads, which I think a lot of people think that is a negative thing. Maybe it has a negative connotation, but not necessarily. It just is. It's just, I think it's good to let people know that that's how it works, because then you can take that into account. Because sometimes you would rather, at least me, I would rather get an ad for something I might want than something I have no interest in. If I'm going to be getting ads either way, watching TV or on the internet, like I might as well get, if I've been into, like I was using the example of gardening, if I've been into gardening and I started getting ads for like gardening water hoses, then I might want that. That's better than getting an ad for a skateboard when I don't skateboard. You never know what random examples are going to come into my mind when I'm saying these things. I don't know why I picked skateboard because I don't do that. Um, so that, yeah, that's Google there. And then the other one that people are really familiar with, also I should mention as I go back up, this was kind of in that chart earlier, but Google, if you have an Android phone, it's probably running on the Google environment. So you probably have a lot of these apps and this cloud storage like already tied into your Android phone when you bought it. And that's because, these big companies get together and make agreements. So Samsung gets together with Google and they make an agreement that Google software is going to be on all their phones because Samsung doesn't make software like that. But Apple, they actually make all the software. So they make the phone and the software. So all their phones and iPads and computers come with all their software. So like I said, it's competing environments. Um, so when you buy an Apple device, you have to create an Apple ID. And I kind of want to harp on this for a second. I'm not sure how many, I know a lot of folks in this group are pretty savvy, but a lot of people that we see at the library, you might have had an iPhone for 10 years and you might have made your Apple ID account. You created the account maybe like 10 years ago, and you might not remember your Apple ID which is also the same as your iCloud. So your Apple ID account is synonymous with your iCloud account. And so that password and that username is going to be with you the entire time that you are using Apple devices like iPhones and iPads and Mac computers. So when you first make that account, it's super important because you might use it for 20 years. But a lot of people didn't realize how important it was when they made it. So I guess that's all to say. If you don't know your Apple ID password or your iCloud password, it's really a good idea to try to figure that out or remember it or recover that password because it's a very important one. It's probably like the second most, like your iCloud password if you use Apple products, and your email password are probably the two most important passwords. Maybe your bank account password. Um, and so when you buy an iPhone, you get your iCloud Apple ID account set up, and you get 5 GB of free storage included in that. And then you can upgrade, kind of very similar to Google. You can upgrade to 50 gigabytes, 50 gigabytes for $1 a month, or 200 gigabytes for $3 a month. And the iCloud enables your phone and your iPad and your Mac computer to sync together. I click on one more link here. So this is a little visual of how iCloud works. All of the various Apple apps and phones, they all talk to iCloud, and that's how you have the same information on your phone, your tablet, your computer, if you have all three of those things. Some people just have the phone, some people just have the computer. But like the example I used earlier was I have a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old. So if I take a picture of them and with my phone, and then I go to my computer, it'll be on the computer too. And the way that does that is they both are syncing to the cloud. They're both talking to the same servers. It actually may take a little bit for it to show up on my computer. Sometimes it's not immediate, but eventually it'll show up on there. And so, yeah, that's called syncing. Okay, so Okay, so the most common stored items on your iCloud that I see anyway are photos and videos. So when people have their iCloud and it's getting full, usually it's a lot of photos, and the videos definitely take up the most space. So if you take a lot of videos, you might fill up your iCloud, you might have to buy more space. But like I was mentioning earlier, it's not so simple to free up space, so it might be easiest just to purchase more storage. Unfortunately, because people want a deal, they definitely want to um, save a few dollars, but it's much easier just to pay the $1 or $3 a month. And you can back up. This is important. You can back up your entire phone and your computer via iCloud. So that was in that previous graphic. There's an icon that's going to be on your phone and your computer. That let's see if I can find it. I keep jumping back and forth here. There's an icon that's called backup, and you can back up straight to the cloud. Let's see, where is it here? Right here, iCloud backup. So if you're using iPhone or Mac, that app will be on your phone. And there's a few settings, but it's actually pretty easy to use. Uh, Usually you just set it to backup automatically, and it'll back up your phone or your computer every night. Usually it does it at night when it's plugged in and connected to Wi-Fi, so it doesn't use all your data. But it just changes each day, like what changes you've made that day, and it just updates the image of your phone on in the cloud. So again, if you drop your phone in the lake, you can go to the store, get a new phone, and then once you sign into your account, it'll download all of the data for your phone, and it'll be like it never happened. You'll be using a different physical phone, but it'll have all the same data just like nothing ever happened. Okay. And the last one we'll talk about is Microsoft OneDrive. I get asked about this quite a bit at the library. Because a lot of people are used to Microsoft Word, and they've used Microsoft Word for years. And you can buy Microsoft Word and just put it on your computer. And that's called Office 2021 is what they call that. So on our computers at the library, we don't want cloud services. Because we don't want everyone at the library to have to sign in for something. We just want the program to be on the computer. So a lot of people are used to that, and they're used to just having it on their computer. But Microsoft, I mean, if they want the revenue as a big part of it. If you think about it, they don't want you to buy the software once every few years, and then maybe you just stretch it out and try to use it for like 10 years. We see people come in, they have a 10-year-old computer, maybe it's running really slow, but it's got Microsoft Word on it, and they don't want to rebuy the software, so they're like stretching it. Well, then the company doesn't get any revenue. So they offer Microsoft Office 365 as a subscription. So then you subscribe to that instead of using Microsoft Office 2021. So it's a little confusing, all the different names for things, but um, so yeah, I'm actually kind of going in the wrong order here. If you look at the bottom of the slide, it says Microsoft 365 subscription, which includes Microsoft Office 365, is $70 a year. Or you can buy Microsoft Office 2021, which has Microsoft Word, for $150 one time. And it's on your computer. You can use it on one computer only. So you can't swap between computers. You can use it on one computer as long as you want for $150. So it's just two very different ways to get it. But what they're really trying to move everyone to is the subscription, because honestly, they probably make more money that way. But you also get convenience for that as well, because you can use it on any computer. You can come to the library and you can sign into your Office account and you have all your documents. So OneDrive is what Microsoft calls their cloud storage. So Google calls it Google Drive, and Apple calls it iCloud, and Microsoft calls it OneDrive. And it's part of your Microsoft 365 account. And OneDrive is to Microsoft 365 as Google Drive is to Google Workspace. So I wish I could just jump back to that chart real quick. It's a little too much on that chart, but it's just really they're the same thing. They're two companies offering the same thing. It's like Coke and Pepsi. It's like Ford and Chevy. It's like the same thing, just with different names and different companies. So with OneDrive and Microsoft, they give you 5 gigabytes for free, 15 gigabyte mailbox for your email, which is I think the same as Google. 100 gigabytes for $2 a month and 1 terabyte for $7 a month. So it's all very similar. And again, Microsoft and Google equal, they call it competing productivity environments. So Microsoft has Microsoft Word and Excel and PowerPoint, and Google has Google Docs and Google Sheets and Google Slides. And they're really the same thing, except slight differences. The last slide I have here, and I'll answer a few questions. I wanted to get finished a little earlier than that, but is what about Dropbox? Mentioned that earlier. Dropbox is a standalone company, so it's not connected to your email and it's not connected to ads. It's just a separate cloud storage, which is really good for just sharing collaborative files. So I'm a musician, so if you wanted to work on a song with someone, you might work on that on your computer and then upload your files to Dropbox, and then you could share the Dropbox. They could get the files and they could work on the song on their computer and upload it to the Dropbox, and you could get it out of the Dropbox and work on it on your computer and collaborate that way. But it's really just another competitor. It's one of the original cloud services, but you'll see that a lot. Yeah, and they don't sell your data to advertisers, and so you actually get a little less space for free because they don't really make money any other way. But some people like Dropbox a lot. Okay, I think I'll end there.
Okay, I know we don't have a lot of time because I know you need to scoot shortly. You've kind of answered some questions. I've written down all the questions, so anything we don't get answered, I'm going to pass to you later, and we'll send that out to everybody who's here. But I'll try to get at least a couple in. One of them, I think that's important. If you delete attachments or emails or anything, is it also deleted from storage?
I think so. And this is the hard part about this is they all work a little bit differently. But if you delete an attachment, like if you delete the email or you delete the attachment, I think usually it goes into the trash for like a month. And I think everyone might understand this too, but like they call it the trash or the recycling bin because it's like the trash can. I can see a trash can right here beside me. And if I put something in there, it's not gone yet. It's just in a holding period. It's not yet gone, but it's going to be gone when the facilities crew comes by every few days to empty out the trash can. So that's the same way as email. When you delete an attachment or delete an email, it'll go into that trash folder for usually like a month, and then after a month it'll automatically be deleted. So if you change your mind, you have a period of time to get it back. But I think it's usually deleted after a period of time. Sometimes you have to do it twice. Sometimes you have to say delete, and you have to go into the folder and say delete forever. And Google says delete forever, I think is what it says. So they make sure that you know that's what you're doing.
Yeah, okay. And I will mention, if you want to clean up your trash on a regular basis, you can move that storage